Meat City, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Meat City Gaming. JD here with a Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen video. I'm going to do just a couple of these. This is a game I've been playing recently that I have enjoyed a whole lot, and I'm pretty close to finishing up the game. But there's two interesting aspects of the game that I thought would be fun to cover in a video or in a couple of videos, depending on how the timing works out. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a walkthrough slash run through of Bitterblack Isle. It's basically the end game content. This is the Dark Arisen DLC. I rented the game recently, and the version that I have has the Dark Arisen DLC bundled into it. So you get this extra content, and it is high-end end game content, harder than anything that's in the base game. But along with that come some of the most powerful, or absolutely the most powerful, weapons and armor and other item and equipment that you can get. So I had a lot of fun getting through it. The game is such a grind. It is kind of old school in how some of the systems work and how it doesn't really hold your hand a whole lot. So it's a lot of fun if you're into that certain type of game, right? It's not going to be for everybody, but it definitely scratched the itch for me. And so I want to do a little run through of how Bitterblack Isle gets laid out. Now, the first thing you need to do is get there. So what you need to do is rest in Cockatrice. That's the hometown, the first town that you start in terms of the village. And you need to wait until nightfall. So if it's nighttime, then great. If not, you can rest at the local inn, which is what I'm doing. And you can rest until nightfall, and then it will be nighttime when you come out of the inn. And what you need to do is you need to run down to the dock and find the lady down there, and she will provide transportation for you to Bitterblack Isle. There she is. So there's a little cutscene, I guess, the first time that you are here at the appropriate moment to run into her. That's her down there on the dock at the end of the pier. So all you need to do is run down and talk to her, and she will take you to Bitterblack Isle. So that's what we're going to do as soon as we get out of the cutscene. Alright, so you can see her with her lantern down there. So we'll run down to her and talk to her. And then once you visit Bitterblack Isle the first time, there is a port crystal there, which is basically the fast travel system in the game. So when you get there the first time, then you can leave whenever you want, come back to the mainland, continue your adventures, and then if you need to level up, if you need to get stronger, you can always return back there just by using your port crystal to go back to the designated spot without having to find Ulra at night like we do here. So after a not so brief cutscene, we arrive on the beach, the hub area for Bitterblack Isle, and we can see our host Ulra is here, and another quick or not so quick cutscene where she provides a little bit of the background, a little bit of the mystery here, but we're not really going to go into that. The goal that I want to provide here, and this isn't going to be a 100% complete every nook and cranny walkthrough, but I am going to go through an entire run, top to bottom, how you get through Bitterblack Isle from start to finish. Talk about some of the bosses that you see. I will show some of the locations where the hidden items are, the out-of-the-way treasure chests are, and kind of talk about the experience and how I built up to go through it. In this run, my character is pretty much decked out. I'm not absolutely maxed, but I'm fairly close. I've gotten the end game weapons and some of the armor pieces, not quite everything, but my character is very powerful. This is a hard mode run through, so this is new game plus actually, and it is on hard, not normal difficulty. So request purification is going to be a big thing here. These are the Bitterblack items, and what happens is when you find these in the dungeon, they're cursed. They're unidentified items. It goes back to kind of the Diablo 1 days where you find a magical item, but you don't know what it is until it's identified. So Ulra is the one who identifies them, but you have to pay in Rift Crystals in order to do it. So hoard Rift Crystals, Rift Crystals, because they are super valuable, and you need them to uncover and identify the items, which are the the end game armor, the end game weapons that you'll be pursuing here in the dungeon. So one of the interesting things about how Dragon's Dogma works is that the bosses that you face, they have kind of baseline defenses. It's all about your stats compared to the boss's stats. It's like in World of Warcraft, if you're a level 1 character and you walk up to a level 60 enemy and you try to hit it, you're not going to do any damage and you're probably not even going to hit it. Well, here it's very similar, where you need to have a certain attack stat, whether that's strength or magic depending on the class that you're using. You need to have that stat to a certain level, or you're just not going to damage these bosses. You can whack on them with the sword, or you can fire thousands of arrows into them, and it's not going to do anything. It's just going to take off, 1 hit point, and these things have thousands, if not tens of thousands of hit points, some of the bosses in here. So if you come into this too early, you're not going to make much progress. But what I can say is there are some easy and early chests that you can grab, and if you can get yourself that level 1 weapon, the Bitterblack weapon, right, that's going to make a drastic increase to your ability to damage these mobs. And then that may get you past the first boss, and then you may have a chance to get the level 2 weapon from a chest. So that's how this goes. Progress at the beginning is extremely slow, and then once you start to make a little bit of progress, the rest of the progress can come very quickly. As long as you can start taking out those enemies, start progressing into the dungeon far enough to be opening up the chests, it will kind of steamroll from there, and eventually you'll be ready to roll. So that's the basic strategy. You can see here in our character window, if we go into equipment, right now I am running magic. So this is a magic archer, so it's all about my bow, and it's a magic bow. We're up to 2600 magic, right? That's end game level stats. You need to be at least 1,000 before you think about going through this on your first playthrough on the normal difficulty. If you get to 1,000 of your attack statistics, strength, or magic, you'll at least have a chance. It's still going to be painfully slow, but no matter what, one of those first runs is going to be slow. It's going to be a grind to get through it. But then when you start getting the weapons, when you start getting the items that you need, it'll go faster and faster, and you'll be more efficient, and you'll be able to take down bosses faster, and then you can do repeated runs, and it'll kind of snowball. But it is a grind at the beginning if you don't have the right statistics. So the other thing you can see there is I did go back and get my lantern. It's actually an elite lantern, which is one of the drops from in here. It doesn't really do much different, except it's a little brighter and it's a little lighter. Weight is a big factor in this game. You can only carry so much, and the point is to go down here and get as much as possible to be efficient. So saving weight wherever you can is always great. But you do need a lantern. If it's a basic one, that's fine. You want a lantern down here because there are certain points that are absolutely pitch black that you cannot see, and it'll be impassable basically without a light source of some kind. So here we are in the first area, and it's pretty straightforward, and the areas do repeat. There are kind of, 8 or 9 maybe tile sets or room sets, and then you run into that tile set or that room set 3, 4, 5 times depending as you progress down through the dungeon. And you may come in from a different entry point. You may have a certain wall that's blocked off as you go through it a second time, but it is the same basic layout, and so if you know it once, you'll know it a bunch of times. So in this first room, there's enemies, and they can change, right? In this time we've got some wolves, but other times they can be different enemies in the same space. So you may come into the first room and it's enemy A, and then you come back later and it's enemy B, right? There are 2 sets of enemies that can show up in each room, and it's at least 2. There might be more than that. So again, this is a new run through of Bitterblack Isle. The final boss, Damien, is when you defeat him, it kind of resets Bitterblack Isle into its own mini hard mode. All new enemies show up, and the boss gets a second phase if you make it back down to him, and the drops get better, right? You can get access to the level 3 stuff. So all of that kind of feeds into the cycle here. So in this first room, the first thing I'm going to show you kind of a little mini secret, and actually I don't have the right equipment for it. Let's see if I can do the jump. What you want to do is have a staff so you can float. Magic Archer is great for this because they can use a staff. But you want to run, and we weren't quite able to do the jump properly. But if you have a staff, you can make that jump up there, and there are a couple of armor, loot chests that may have armor or different things in them. So now one of the things that can happen as you make your way through the dungeon is death will show up. That is death right there, and he shows up a couple of times throughout your run and is probably the most difficult, the most deadly enemy in Bitterblack Isle. So a couple of things about death, right? That lantern right there, the move that he's doing right now, will put your pawns or you to sleep. And once something is asleep near death, he will use his scythe swing. And if he hits something with his scythe, it's dead and it doesn't come back. Usually pawns, when they go down, you can resurrect them. If they get hit with death's scythe, they're down and they're not coming back. The other tricky thing about death, if you actually can do damage to him, which I can now, is after you do so much damage, he retreats. So you can't really burn him down in just one visit in one room. There are, of course, ways to cheese that. There's explosive arrows in the game, and if you have a high enough damage stat and you use enough explosive arrows, you can kind of stagger death and get him stuck in a staggered animation and eventually take him out in one go. You can prevent his retreat if you keep him staggered. So that is a possibility. That is a tactic, but not something I'm going to show here. Again, I'm not really looking to cheese it or do anything like that. Feel free to do it. Again, this is a super difficult dungeon, but that takes a lot of prep and a lot of planning to have all the stuff that you need, the right amount of blast arrows, the right skills, the right attack stats, all that stuff to get through death in one go. For me, it's easier at this point just to take out as much as I can when he shows up, and then the next time, I will continue until I've defeated him. And I have taken out death in a playthrough here. That is one of the achievements in the game, is to take out death. So one of the other surprises that can happen here in Bitterblack Isle that doesn't happen in the base game are surprise chests with monsters in it, similar to Dark Souls, where you have the mimics, where if you try to open a chest, it actually is a monster. Here, there are monsters that will spring out of some of the chests, and it's kind of random. Like in Dark Souls, if you knew a chest had a mimic in it, you knew. You could attack it, you could trigger it, and you were good to go. Here in Dragon's Dogma, there's a little bit of randomness to it. Certain chests can have a monster inside, but not always, and you can't pre-trigger it by attacking the chest. You kind of just have to open it and then deal with what happens. So if you open it yourself, you need the monster that springs out to grab you to get hit one time. All you have to do is have it attacked once, and it'll drop you. But your pawns, depending on their class and depending on their AI, can be kind of stupid, and they can just stand there and watch you get eaten by the thing, and if they don't interrupt it, it will kill you in one hit, which is super annoying. So the easiest way to get around that is to order your pawns to open the chests for you. If you point at them and tell them to go at the chest, then they'll do so, and if the monster attacks them, all you need to do is attack the monster, and it will drop them. When the monster then has the person, once it drops them, you really want to take those things out because they can drop some of the good Bitterblack items. They're also worth a lot of experience, but they are tough to take out, and they, again, have a retreat factor. After you've put so much damage into them, they will start to retreat, so you need to have good burst ability. So we came up here, I showed you where some of the items and kind of the back way through is, and then you can come out through this door, and yep, that's back to the beginning of the level. That's the start, and we're going to go back down to the main floor, and we'll advance to the next room. Okay, so we're going to go into the second room now, and this is, I believe, a quick cutscene, and we will meet our second friend of Bitterblack Isle. Olra will stay up on the beach. She'll be there to identify items for you. She can kind of act as a basically an innkeeper to let you manage your items and do all that kind of stuff. There's a bed up there next to her so you can rest. Just like if it was an inn, you don't use that through her dialogue box, but you just go use the cot that's on the ground next to her. And here is our second friend. I believe his name is Baroque, another Arisen, and he's kind of a mobile innkeeper where he can store your items and do some other functions that we'll get here, including rarefying. So in the base game, you can upgrade your items, your armor, your weapons, up to 3 stars. And then by killing dragons in the game, you have the chance for your items to become Dragon Forged, which is basically the highest level that they can go to in the base game. When you get to Baroque here, though, if you have any items that are Dragon Forged, now there are additional levels of Dragon Forging. So you can see here, red is regular Dragon Forged. There's a silver and a gold. And gold Dragon Forged is the new highest level of upgrade for a weapon in the game. So we will go, while we're here, we're going to pull out the staff just so I have it for later runs and areas where floating is useful. We'll sort by magic, and we should be able to pull out, there's the Hollowed Dragon, which is currently our best staff. Wait, that's the Arch Staff. That's not the right one. The Volant White is actually what we're going to grab. We can't use an Arch Staff, which are the most powerful staves, as a magic archer, so instead we will use we only need it for transportation. It doesn't matter what its statistics are. Basically, I'll swap into it when I want to float, and then switch back to the daggers. And so the other functions we can see here for Baroque. You can manage items. He can also do skill changes. You can learn new skills. You can change your vocation, and then you can buy and sell stuff as well. And he has some useful items in here. The Salubrious Brew is a great healing item, and he's got some softeners so you don't get petrified, and oil, and some other things as well. So in the first run through here, this area is pretty tame. It's basically a safe spot, and you use it to access the rest of the way down in the dungeon. There are some chests in here, so you can open these up, and some of these will have the Bitterblack items in it. So for your first couple of runs through, you can run through the first area, maybe grab a chest or two on the way, and then when you get here, you'll be able to kind of just clean up these chests as well. So this is the door we're going to go down, and that's how you get to the next part of the level. Scattered around here, you'll see there's also these additional doors here that are kind of locked, and what you need are Moonbeam Gems to open it, and they're in a couple certain locations throughout the dungeon. You can pick them up and then open those doors, and there is some pretty good items in there. I'll try to show where the Moonbeam Gems are located. We'll definitely get a couple of them in this run through. Again, I'm not going to show every single location of every item. So the other chests, eventually we're going to go down that first door I showed, and that's going to lead us to a key, which will let us unlock this door, which will let us continue into the dungeon. And around here, just a couple more chests. And we're not going to get all of these again. If you look around, this basic RPG game rules apply. If you have a corner or a way that you can go down it. Odds are at the end of that corridor, if you see a little secret passage, if you see a little ledge that you can jump to it. There's going to be a reason that it's there. There's going to be an item at the end of it. There'll be, some reward for you for doing that. So again, chests all around. Those Moonbeam Gem doors, I believe there's 7 of them. So plenty of those as well. You can open those up as you work your way through. And then you want to advance down through the level. So here's more of those Moonbeam Gems. This area actually has a whole top section as well. You can see the lights up there, and when you come into the second playthrough, after you've beaten the boss the first time, this area will have a boss character in it, a dragon or a wyvern of some kind usually. But to get to this upper area, you can go through here, climb up the side of this little mountain, and you can access this upper area. We'll try that again. And up here there is more chests. And a little stash of items hidden up in the back.
I obey. I'm on my way.
And again, if you can find an area, right, where there's chests here, there's an item there. Yes, you want to go up on that ledge. You can go there. I think it's another Moonbeam Gem. But there's also a hidden door here, which believes leads to just a one-off room, which will have some chests in it, so it's worth raiding if you can. And it's going to have a boss character in it. So, again, depending on your item level, your attack level, these might be worth pursuing, and they might not. It all depends on your appetite. But this is an optional area where if you're just here for your first time and you really don't want to get bogged down, then feel free to skip it and just go for the advancement path. But if you're looking for a little extra loot, if you have some items that aren't Dragon Forged, then you know you've got a chance to get them Dragon Forged here with the dragon. So at the item level that I'm at, not too difficult to get these guys down. The dragon does have a weak spot in its chest, so you hit that a couple times, you can expose it, and then you really want to direct your attacks there whenever you can. Yeah, one of the crazy things about all the dragons in this place is they have that instant roar, which just can take out every single one of your pawns from full health to down. And you can raise them back up, which is good, but man, is it annoying to have a full set of pawns, have them all ready to go, and then just from one random attack from the dragon, they all go down immediately. So we will get them back up. They're useful to have, useful distractions. There are a couple of boss, non-boss characters in here kind of helping out the wyvern. So we get everybody back up. And a couple more attacks to the chest, and we should be in pretty good shape. And of course, the last hit on those has to hit the weak spot. A bit of an annoying thing. Sometimes it can be hidden and they don't want to show the weak spot, so you're just pouring damage into them, but you've got to hit that weak spot last to take them out. And again, the dragons drop good materials in order to upgrade your items, to do that gold dragon forging and those other things. You need the drops from boss characters, so good to take out these bosses whenever you can. And then, of course, once you do, you get the spoils with all of the chests here. And I'm just going to open these to save time rather than wait for my pawns to come over and help out. Not every chest can hold the trap, and I think these are kind of meant to be reward chests, so they won't really do that. They won't really punish you with a trap in a reward area. But you never know. I haven't mapped them all out completely, so always be on your toes. And you know, if you're not rushing, feel free to take the extra second, tell your pawns to open the chest for you, so you don't get eaten up by one of the chest monsters. So that's it. This is just a kind of a one-room encounter. It has the boss. It has some chests. You can take that out and go on your way. There are some chests out here on the ledge, some gather spots where you can kind of search the ground. And there is another chest. Sometimes there's a mining spot back in these areas. Again, this is a room that will repeat. You'll see this a couple of times. So, yes, every time this little back alley will be here, there'll be a chest, there'll be a mining spot. Sometimes it will connect through if you look where that door is, or where that light is over there. There can be a door which leads you to the next area. But this one is a dead end. Okay, so we're back in the Moonbeam Gem Room, the Dusk Moon Tower, and we're just going to drop down from the second floor here and head through the door that we need to go to continue on our way. Okay, so this is the Ward of Regret, and again, this is going to be eventually another dead end, but there's a key that we need here to open that locked door. So we're going to progress through. Now you can see here is a rift crystal, and these are going to be scattered throughout the dungeon, and they're going to be broken. All you have to do is fix them once, though. I fixed them in my first playthrough, and then they become a functioning rift crystal. You have to, functioning rift stone. You have to spend crystals to repair them, and then you can use these to swap out for your new pawns. as you're going through Bitterblack Isle, you can level up really, really fast. So you want to use these, A, to heal your pawns, and B, to make sure you've got the highest level pawns that you can have. You know, if you level up 5 times, trade out the pawn you're using for one that matches your level so that you're not missing out on all that extra power that they're providing. Again, every point of damage matters down here. It can save you a ton of time from just grinding through the enemies if you've got that extra stats to back you up. So again, another tile set here. This does repeat a couple of times. There are these 2 doors. They're locked. You need a skeleton key. And usually when you come in here, there is an ambush, enemies that will rise out of the ground, or some other kind of trick to get you once you come in here. I'm guessing one of these might have the monster. It doesn't. So we'll grab that. Again, Bitterblack items are always good. And I don't know if I have a second skeleton key. We'll check. I don't. Okay, so always bring at least 2 keys with you. Sometimes you'll find them throughout the adventure. But again, go in, get the items. They are worth it, but be prepared for an ambush. And then I think there's another chest on the back end here, along with some undead. So we can take those out. And the character I'm using, the Magic Archer, man, I really like it. It's mobile, and it gives you options. It's dynamic play, and there's a second skeleton key, so we'll go use that while we're here. You can fight from range with the bow. The arrows actually lock on. There's just a standard archer that you can be, which uses just a regular bow and maybe has more damage potential, but the arrows don't seek. And so, you know, if you're missing half your shots, well, then you're not putting out the damage. And this Magic Archer can also use daggers, so it's deadly up close. You can climb on enemies, so you can reach weak spots on some of the bigger enemies. And here we go. This was the ambush I was talking about with one of the skeleton lords. But we can make short work of him, again, with our overpowered equipment. Yeah, so the Magic Archer just seeking damage from afar with the arrows that hone in on the enemy. Burst damage with the daggers, and then mobility. You can dodge roll out of the way, which is fast. It doesn't take stamina. So this, for me, was the class that I enjoyed the most. Tip for leveling up as you play through the game, and this is a hybrid class, hybrid between Magician and Assassin. When you're playing through the game, the class that you are depends on or influences the statistics that you get each time you level up. So the main statistic for the Magic Archer, in my view, is magic, because you're going to be using a magic bow as your main weapon. So for that, ideally, if you're a min-maxing type, you want to pick a Sorcerer, the pure magic build, as your main character as you play through the game, because every time you level up as a Sorcerer, you're getting the most benefit, the most increase to your magic stat as you're going through there. And so that way, when you get to endgame, if you want to switch to Magic Archer, your natural magic stat just from leveling up is as high as it can be, and that'll kind of help you out. But it's not necessary. Again, oh, and here we go. That's one of the treasure traps. And if we come in here, we can use the burst damage to bring it down. You can see 24,000 XP, and they do often, not always, but often drop the Bitterblack gear. So that's what the treasure monster looks like. If I had opened that myself, it would have grabbed me in its mouth, and I would have been stuck until one of my pawns attacked it to free me. But once you're free, you can get up in its face, do some damage, and take them out quickly, and you'll get rewarded with some pretty good XP and item drops. One thing to keep in mind with those treasure monsters is they can also cast an instant death. It's a red ring on the ground, and it kind of has a red outline that swirls around and goes black. And when the whole thing fills in black, when it completes one circumference, it casts the death spell. And if you're inside the circle when it finishes casting, it will one-hit KO you. So keep a lookout for that. The other good thing about the Magic Archer that I like so much, just some of the skills that it has. So you can see this 9-fold bolt is actually the super upgrade. It starts as a 3-fold bolt. You can learn a 6-fold bolt just by progressing through the Magic Archer's ranks. And then if you find the Bowman ring, the special ring for this class, it gives you that 3rd upgrade, which makes it a 9-fold bolt and super, super powerful. A one-hit ability that can take half of a bar of health off the bosses, off of Damien and off of Death, and just absolutely ridiculous. And the other skill that I really like to use is their Ricochet Hunter, where it takes a little bit to charge up, and then the arrow just bounces off of the walls. And if you're in a tight space, if you're in a funneled corridor, the enemy that follows you in there, if you unleash a ricochet bolt or two, it will just absolutely decimate them. It just bounces off the wall, and every time it does, it goes back through the enemy, and it just piles up damage. So in my early runs, I was able to take out things I had no business taking out thanks to Ricochet Bolt. I would get into a corridor, it would come in there after me, and then I could just bounce the bolt in there, and it would fly off the enemy, 50, 100 times, and stack up that damage to take out an enemy. Otherwise, that would take me forever to take out. So this is just another little sidetrack. I think there's a secret here. Yep, up there on the top. And we will show the floating magic staff trick here. I think I can do it now. So we'll put this on. And now if we run and jump, we can grab the ledge. And there's a little secret area up here with some Bitterblack ear and a lever, which opens up that door that was locked earlier. So lots of places like that, lots of opportunities for those. And if you see a ledge, if you see something like that, yes, you want to try and take advantage of it. Use your jumping ability. You can't always do it with the double jump. The staff is a really good one. Again, why I like Magic Archer. You can switch into the staff and then switch out of it again, and save it for just movement and not have to be stuck with it for combat. The Sorcerer, the Mage, they kind of have to stand around and wait for their spells to cast, and they're vulnerable while they do that, and it's not as much of a dynamic style of gameplay, so it's a little more boring, although the spells that you can cast, the damage you can do is way, way more impressive than the Magic Archer. You can cast spells around corners, you can cast them from up on top of a ledge to down below it to do damage to bosses that can't even see you. All that stuff is really impressive and cool, but for me, I prefer the dynamic play of the Magic Archer. And I think we finished up. Okay, we're going to head to the next room. Okay, so Midnight Helix. This is the end of this little side track, and it's going to have a Gore Cyclops, a big enemy, chained up. And yes, he is chained up, and he cannot hurt you right now. So, especially your first time through here, I recommend not messing with him. What you need to do is get to the top of this room, and you'll notice there are flame magicians positioned all throughout it, and they will just kind of rain fire down on you. So you want to, if you're ranged, attack them, or otherwise run up to them quickly so that you can get into their face and disrupt their attacks and take them out. You do want to get rid of them, so you can get up to the top here. And there's a Gargoyle. And we can finish this with some daggers. But you can see the fireballs kind of raining down around, which can be a lot of trouble if you don't have the movement and the damage and all that to get through these guys. It can be troublesome pretty quickly. So we're going to continue up to the top of the tower. Again, another chest in there. And as most of this stuff isn't going to be relevant to me, I'm kind of skipping a lot of it. Again, as you're going through here the first time, check every nook and cranny. Get every item. They will be of value to you. But here you can see at the top, this is what we're here for. It's the Void Key. And that will open that locked door. And that's good. A novelty level 3 item, can be very useful if you're in here for the first time. Getting anything level 3 can really increase the abilities of your character. Again, novelties, not really the best item that you're looking for, but anything that's level 3 is going to be a big improvement over what your character is using in some facet of the game as you're playing through the base game and you come to Bitterblack Isle for the first time. So you can completely ignore the Gore Cyclops. You can leave here and head back and just continue your journey, and I recommend doing that if you're not super overpowered the first time you're in here. There's a little sidebar. You can go in here, you can go down to this end, grab some items. There is a back underground area with some items down there as well, and you can access that through this little hole in the gate here. And if you come through here, you can go back, and there's a little, you know, some chests and some other items there. And if you're really invested in the long haul, you want to take this guy out the first time you're here, you can do that. And he'll break free, and then you can go in here and just fire arrows out and, you know, spend the next 30 minutes of your life shooting arrows at him. I've done that. And, you know, it's not a lot of fun, but it's a good way to get a ton of experience and get your character leveled up, and this guy can have some drops, and all that can be good. But if he hits you one time, you're going to die. You know, so have wake stones so that you can res yourself, or some other method of getting yourself back up, or avoiding damage, because he will take out any character that's not extremely overgeared to be here. Even right now with my powerful gear, my good armor, all that stuff, he would still probably take me out very quickly. And the other place you can kind of go to combat him is in this hallway here. Let's see if we can go for his head. I think we've done enough damage for his helmet to come off, or almost. That can kind of stagger him a little bit. There we go, the helmet's off. And we can continue to aim for the head to do some increased damage to him. Unfortunately, because that room is so big, it's not a great candidate for the Ricochet Hunter, for the Ricochet arrow. It'll only get, you know, 1 or 2 bounces. So instead, the 9-fold is much more potent. And 1 or 2 more arrows should do it. And there he goes. And you can see 136,000 XP. That is a ton. If you're, you know, down at level 50 or 55, that's going to be multiple levels all in one shot, which could otherwise take you a lot of time. So the time investment can be worth it. Again, you really want to have those increased damage stats, and he can drop some decent stuff too. So it's how much time you want to spend and how much investment you want to put into trying to get this guy down. But if you do it, you can kind of clean up the rewards and then continue on your way. So what we're going to do now is backtrack all the way to the Moonbeam Gem Room and continue from there. So here we are back in the Dusk Moon Tower. We've got our Void Key in hand, so we can use it to unlock the door and head down. And again, showing the power of the Ricochet Hunter, we can kind of step into a room, let the bolts go flying, and if there's enemies in there, you'll see them start to take damage, and if not, you know the room is clear. These little slugs that pop up, they will jump at you. They're actually pretty tough to aim at and hit, again, if you don't have the seeking bolts of the bow. And then when you kill them, they leave like a little poison cloud. So you can progress through by jumping up through there. That's one option, and follow the trail. There's a chest up there. The other place that you want to go is out into this main courtyard. And you can see there is going to be a boss character here. In this case, it's the Cockatrice. And this is the one that can petrify you pretty easily, so you want to make sure you have some of the secret softeners or the Cockatrice liquid, anything that will cure the petrification status. And again, we can burn it down pretty easily because of our powered up weapons and armor. We are overgeared for this encounter. So you will recognize now this is the very similar room to the first boss room where we ran into death. And yes, if you go up through this passageway, it will lead up to the upper level. You can get up on the balcony up there, and you can jump up to the second balcony, and you can come over to this balcony, and you can go around all the way over there, and there are chests littered throughout those passageways, which will all have the good items. So when you're here, go up there, take advantage of them, and raid those areas looking for potential Bitterblack drops. When you get to the Gutter of Misery, there's a choice. You can continue by heading down the path, but let's do a quick stop up here. There's going to be a chest hidden behind here. Every time you see boxes, yes, there will always be a chest behind it, pretty much without exception. Keep in mind, again, it can have the monster trap in it. And if you go through this upper door, you get to the first rest area within the dungeon. So down here at the end is this pond, which will kind of cure your character, which is great, but kind of unnecessary because there's also a bed, and Baroque is here in this little hideaway. We do want to change out one of our skills, so I'm going to do that very quickly. And we're going to switch out the dagger skill to get magic. I think it's rebalancer. That actually increases your magic stat. So you can cast that at the start of a fight and then go in and use your bow and have kind of a beefed up magic attack, which is just going to help you take down those monsters quicker. There are notice boards. They will have quests in them, which, you know, will have good rewards. So take these whenever you find them, whenever you see them. And then you can rest here on the bench, which will cure you back to full health, get rid of all your wounds. Your non-healable health will be back up to 100%. And you can use Baroque if you have items you want to upgrade, if you have things you want to put into storage, because you're getting weighed down, which will happen very quickly here. You will be getting a lot of cool stuff that you haven't gotten before, so make sure you're emptying out your pockets. And here is the first Moonbeam Gem that you can find, or the first one that I'm, well versed and aware of. And if you wanted to, you could take this back to the tower and unlock one of the doors. But for me, I'll just hang on to it, and I have most of the items that are in those chests at this point anyway. So you rest up, and then we'll head down the stairs. And also, feel free to save frequently. If you get taken out, you're going to go back to the last spot you saved. So make sure before you engage in a boss fight, before you enter a new room for the first time, hit that save button so you don't have to backtrack and lose too much progress.
Jumping down the ledge. Judge well the distance.
So we're going to pop out here. And again, we are skipping chests along the way. There are probably 2 or 3 in that bottom landing there that you can get when you're there for the first time, and when those things are of value to you. Again, you can go up the back way here. There's a waterfall and some hidden rooms. But we want to progress forward here, and these items, they're actually mini forms of a boss that we'll run into a little bit later. Problem is they're invulnerable when they're not casting a spell. So you have to kind of wait for them to get the magic around them like they're going to cast something. And then you can attack them and take them down pretty quickly after they become vulnerable from casting a spell. And again, one of the reasons I love the magic archer so much, you can just kind of find the hidden monsters. There's the salamanders, the saurians, can be camouflaged. They're up on the walls, but it doesn't matter. You just send some ricochet arrows out in front of you, and it'll capture, trip up all those enemies, knock them down, expose them, maybe even take them out. And then whenever you see that, the kind of slow-mo, the black and white, that means a boss character has shown up, one that was not a planned part of the level, but kind of a bonus. And I'm not exactly sure what the mechanic is. It seems to be every time you're killing enemies down here in the dungeon, you're kind of building up a meter to the eventual arrival of one of these bosses. And so once you hit whatever threshold and whatever RNG factors come into play, one of those bosses will spawn. And again, low level, they can be very, very tough. That ogre can one-shot you if you're level 60, level 70. So maybe it's something you want to run from, because if you leave, you can just avoid the fight and not have to worry about it. But at this level, again, a couple of Ricochet bolts, we can take care of it. It's all extra XP, it's extra loot items. If you can take them out, you want to try and do so. And so we come to the Shrine of Futile Truths, and this is the first kind of static boss. This is a boss that you actually need to kill in order to progress through the rest of the dungeon. And so it's got a couple of attacks. It has these tentacles, which you want to pop off because they allow it to cast magic, to summon tentacles. So the first thing you want to do is get those off. And you can see, again, why the Magic Archer is so good. We can see those areas that we can target because they'll pop up as, they'll get circled and highlighted. And if you're playing another class, you don't get that. They don't show that, and so you're at a big disadvantage. So you can pop off a bunch of those tentacles, and then the way that you actually hurt the boss is by shooting the eye itself. And you can't really get through this tough outer skin. It's got to be the eye itself that's exposed. So you probably want to wind your way down the hill a little bit here. But you also want to have a pillar on hand, because you could see earlier he'll start to flash and cast a blinding spell. And when he does that, it'll blind your character for a pretty decent amount of time. And if you can't see, there's a lot of attacks this guy can do. There you go. So he's casting the spell. And once we're behind the pillar, we can kind of send some arrows bending around there using the Magic Archer's ability. Again, hide behind the pillar. Let him cast the blind. And then we want to send arrows into the eye that's unprotected to do damage. And I popped out a little bit too quickly there, so I am going to get blinded. If you have a healer, they can cure the blindness status. If you have a panacea or the right item to cure blindness, feel free to definitely want to have those on hand when you do your dungeon run because of enemies like the eye. And then the other thing you can do is cast the summon of the big orange pool to cast a really big tentacle to pop up. And if you do that, if you're down on the ground, I like to fight him up here behind these pillars. I just think it's a little more efficient, a little easier to avoid the blind and those other things. But if you're down on the ground and he's casting that spell, if you go right underneath him, he'll cast the tentacle to come straight up out of the ground into his own eye, and you'll get kind of an immediate stagger. So that can be kind of a good shortcut for this fight. But usually the way this goes is you do as much damage as you can, hit the tentacles, Looks like one of our guys is getting petrified, and I think I have the right curative. Let's use that, and it should cure the whole group. Okay. So you're going to take down the tentacles, do damage to the eyeball, take off some of his health bars, and eventually he's going to summon a trio or a quartet, there we go, just on cue, of tentacles. And they are casting like a magic spell down there. And if they finish, you die. You'll get taken out in one hit. So you need to interrupt it. But when you interrupt it, you also stagger the boss. So now he's staggered. You can put some damage into the eyeball, and he takes a ton of damage here. And now that he's on the ground, he's going to take even more, and there you go. You can take him out very quickly. So the fight can go very slowly the first time you're here because you have to hit the eye. The eye's only exposed at a couple of times, when he's just cast his blindness and you've dodged it, or he's casting the tentacles and his eye's open. You can get some arrows in there or whatever it is that you're using. So you're just chipping away, and it's slow and agonizing. But as soon as that ritual comes up, if you're able to burn down the tentacles quickly, which you need to do, or otherwise you're going to die, then he's staggered, and when he's staggered, he'll take a ton of damage. So you can take out a half to 3/4 of his health all in one go once you stagger him. So don't be frustrated. Look for those staggers. It might take 2 staggers for your first time you get here. Break up the ritual once, stagger him, do a bunch of damage, he'll recover, cycle through one more time, and then when he casts the ritual a second time, take it out, stagger him again, pile on the damage, and you should be able to finish him off. And again, the most important loot, I think, eventually, that you're going to get from 99% of the characters down here are the Rift Crystals. In order to identify the cursed items, to purify the cursed items, you want a ton of Rift Crystals. So get them whenever you can, and don't spend them frugally. Use them on the Rift Stones that you're repairing along the way. But other than that, save them to purify the main items. So this is our first checkpoint after you defeat the first boss, quote-unquote boss, the Gazer, the fixed boss. There's another Rift Stone in here. Baroque is usually here. I think he'll show up when I come back down. You can go through the gate, and here's one of the tablet items. If you noticed, right when we went into the dungeon, there was a kind of an edifice there. You need to find, I believe it's 10 tablet pieces throughout the dungeon, and then another 7 or so get filled in from conversations that you either have or hear as you progress through the dungeon to finish off the epitaph. So you can open that gate, pull the lever, and then if you follow this back down, there you can see we're at the beach again. There's Aura, there's the bed over to the side, there's the notice board. So you have a shortcut now to kind of skip over that first whole part of the dungeon and continue on along your way. So I think that's going to be a good spot to stop here, to stop at the checkpoint, and we'll pick up from there in the next video. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.